Hello everyone, hello YouTube, this is Felipe, o Gato de Salto, and today I'm here with another amazing video for you about the Malandros. Who were they? What did they do? Why were they needed? Let's find out the purpose of the Malandros. So welcome back to my channel where I'm always publishing videos about the Samba and Carnival world. And today we are proceeding with this series about Malandros. Who were they? If you didn't check my other videos, I already published 2 videos by now. One talking about the general image of Malandros, what it means, and one talking about the loitering law that was also very important for the formation of Malandros, and they are all here on this channel. You can find the link to the playlist right here in the description box of this video. And before we start, just a regular disclaimer. If you enjoy this channel and you enjoy the content that I produce, make sure that you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification button, leave a comment and share. Get more people to join my channel and let's grow this international community. So, before we start, let's go back in time. Let's pretend that we are in past times, in the 20s, in the 30s, in the 40s. So, how did people act back then? How did they behave on the streets? What was a night out? What was a party? How did they party? So I'm sure you've all seen in movies, especially men and women, they're very elegant, very covered. They would wear shoes and shirts and ties and a hat. It could be a Panama hat or a boater hat, for example, nice shoes. There are so many elements that belong to the wardrobe of a gentleman that simply don't exist nowadays anymore. And back in the time, of course, there was not as much technology as there is today. No one had a smartphone. There was no YouTube. There were definitely classes of people, very separated, like we do have today, but with less access to information, and to the possibility of growing as a person intellectually, getting a new job. That was also restricted access and usually restricted to the elite. So we had, due to this social difference that is very present in Brazil even today, huge different classes. And in the lower classes, especially made of people who are descendants of ex-slaves, who experienced right there in their skin the consequences of slavery, life wasn't really nice. Of course, they couldn't afford living in the best parts of town, so they would live mostly up in the hills in the favelas, but also in the red light district. The red light district of Rio in the 20s, 30s, 40s was the Lapa. Today's Lapa is celebrated for tourists, where you can get lots of little bars, little clubs, and it was just like that back then as well. Just like every red light district in the world, you also need brothels. You need casinos, gambling houses, and all of this magic nightlife that existed back then in the time. You have to understand the setting where we are. Let's say a guy, a strong black man or of color, can't get a very good job in the city center working for a bank because he didn't have education. But he's strong, he can fight, he can provide the muscle force. What kind of jobs is there for him to do? He could work at a restaurant, he could work carrying things or building things, that's for sure. But many could also work as private security. Back then, especially these places in the red light district, little bars, restaurants, brothels, they were not protected by the police. There were not regulations that would protect these kind of places and establishments. So let's say I have a brothel house, I'm a pimp, and I have an enemy, and my enemy also has a house, and we are deadly enemies, we are competitors. He or she could easily set my brothel on fire. And even though there was the police and the police would then investigate, the police was very corrupt. So if he or she had a little bit of money, everything would be put under the table. And, you know, I was just there. And of course, the example that I chose is a bit drastic, but just personal conflicts between people from that class, rape, stealing, they were all crimes, petty crimes, major crimes that were very serious, but the victims of those crimes could not really go to the police. The police wouldn't really help them because they were marginalized. They were a marginalized class. So they needed to count on private security. And guess who did this private security? For brothels, for bars, for restaurants, private people. Yes, our amazing heroes, the Malandros. So they were strong, they were great fighters, they would fight capoeira like no one else. Some very famous Malandros are said to have been in conflict with police and defeated 20 at a time. They are the most extraordinary stories and perhaps myths, urban myths, about the Malandros back in the day. They were really cool people. I don't know if you watch Netflix, Peaky Blinders, but this Netflix series, The Peaky Blinders, they reflect that kind of lifestyle. Of course, in the UK, in the city of Birmingham. But if you would take that world and put it in Rio and have the lower class, black and people of color, as the protagonists of the Peaky Blinders, you would get exactly what I'm talking about, what kind of world that used to be. So these Malandros, they were poor, of course, but they could make a living out of fooling the authorities, gambling, working as private security. And they would also be in constant conflict with the police because the police, of course, saw them as kind of a militia and wanted to arrest them. So they were seen as criminals, but they would help many more other people. Of course, we can't generalize. I'm sure that there were criminals amongst them in a way. But then again, what is crime in such a world? In a world where you cannot rely on the law and on society itself. Everything is a crime, especially if you are marginalized. So yeah, they could make money out of scams and illegal activities, but they could also make money out of legal work, honest work, if you will, being a waiter or, as I said, private security. And this is very important to give us a context of who these people really were. I really like the comparison with this Netflix series, The Peaky Blinders, because it really represents that kind of vibe, but in a tropical country, in Rio. And the foxtrot or whatever, the jive, whatever they would dance in the UK would be the Samba. And this again closes the circle. And the most important thing is definitely the fact that we have to demystify the idea that Malandros are bad people, are bad influences. They were criminals and lawbreakers. And it's not always the case. History always have two sides. And as I said, the Malandros, they were eximious fighters. They were warriors. They were amazing at capoeira. They were great fighters. And this is why most of them were also hired as private security. And of course, since they were in that middle of the night and the cabarets and the brothels and the bars and gambling houses, they also got to experience a lot of life, lots of fairness and unfairness. And that made them also perfect reflections of that society at the time. And if they did have the talent, they would compose, write sambas. So many sambas that were written at the time also reflect this kind of atmosphere. And of course, since they were great fighters, they also need weapons. And we will talk about the weapons of the Malandros and their style, their clothes in the next video, so you understand more of the symbology and why some of the Malandros still dress like that today in the Samba and Carnival performances. I hope you enjoyed this video today about who the Malandros really were. So thank you very much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time with another cool video about the Malandros and the malandragem within our fantastic Samba world. Take care. Bye.